gave you too much of a preview. Okay, so like to start off, you got a little preview, so I don't know, but it's still all good. Like to start us off with an intuitive game, a little intuitive. Just last week we talked about first impressions, that first intuitive hit before your mind gets to intellectualize, analyze, and all of that. We also talked about resonance. It's not so much the feeling nature, but something that you're compelled to, drawn to, something that leads you forward in some way. So you did get a quick second insight of these images, but I do have a slide with 4 images. And those images represent 4 key words that are important in today's service. And what I did was I took those keywords and I did a Google image search to find a word that was representative, of that. And then I took each image and did a Google instrumental song search that had the keyword vibrational frequency of that. And I held the image before me and I held the word in meditation and I sensed it for several minutes on each one as I placed each one on the slide. So you're going to get 3 seconds. You got a little hit already, and some of you might. So what I'm going to ask you to do is, which one do you get a first impression and resonance with? All right. So here we go. All right. So which one in the chat, if you could place, I just have to move this over. I know you're going to see a little box there for now. Which one was it? Was the top left, the top right, the bottom left, bottom right? Which one had resonance for you? Top right, bottom left, bottom left, bottom left, bottom right. Okay. So I want you to hold that as we go through this morning's lessons, and just see if that one, well, let me tell more about it. We're going to close with those images again. So just hold that thought. So here they are again with keywords, the keywords, and it's mind, sensing, feeling, and being. Mind, sensing, feeling, and being. Now, you've seen these words before in previous lessons, and you've seen them before in spiritual teachings. So each one of those words correlates to one of the 4 primary cognitive functions: sensing, thinking, feeling, being. And those we're going to lead into what Kim Chesney calls the intuitive pathways. Also, these cognitive functions are not something that is new in today's science. The Buddha, 2,600 years ago, called them the 4 functions of mindfulness: mindfulness of body, of mind, of feeling, and of truth. And we see Charles Fillmore, co-founder of Unity, and I've shared this with you before, called these the 4 functions of consciousness: sensing, thinking, feeling, intuiting. That was in the earlier 1920s. And then in the later 1900s, we have Carl Jung, who brings in this, look at the similarity between all of them, right? Sensation, thought, emotion, intuition, and he called them 4 functions of cognition. Now, many of you may be familiar with some of Jung's stuff, if any of you have participated in taking the Myers-Briggs intuitive typing test. But I want us to go a little deeper. And today, this lesson, although you've heard of some of this, Some of you might be hearing this for the first time. I want you to be open, because this is more than the emotional intelligence that Gardner's work put out, or more than the Myers-Briggs. This is about intuiting from a higher place in consciousness. It's incorporating that first impressions and that resonance and that discernment that comes from the place of higher consciousness, and not from our personality, not from subconscious, not from an unaware state. So like I said earlier, each one of those cognitive function is the pathway to intuitive insight. So the sensing function correlates to physical, is the pathway of physical intuition. B, or the thinking cognitive function, is the pathway of mindful intuition. And the feeling pathway, that is the open heart, our emotional pathway, is our creative intuition. And then the being, or intuiting, is transcendental intuition. So let's take a closer look at this. Now, our goal in laying this out today is to glean a deeper understanding of them, to notice which ones you have a natural affinity to, which ones seem to be open and flowing, and then which ones maybe not so open that you may have a desire to explore further. And just know that over the next several weeks, we'll be taking each one of these and going deeper into them. So looking at our physical pathway of intuition, that is the sensory pathway where you sense things through your body. It is the most tangible. It is called our grounding pathway, and it is the connection between the metaphysical, all of the limitless possibilities that are just ideas out in the absolute realm, become realized in physical density in the material world. So you experience things through the physical. And some examples of getting this intuitive physical hit would be when you have a gut feeling, you have a natural healing ability. Metaphysical sensations, and what I mean by that, let's say that you are in meditation and you feel like when you're moving through your day, you don't maybe have that sensation as much, but when you're in meditation, all of a sudden you just feel the energy field, like touching your face, touching your head, your hands getting warm or vibrating. That is beyond. That metaphysical means beyond, and you start to experience them through the sensing somewhere touching your body or in your body. It is an empathic sensing. So an example of this would be, I was in a group. It was a class that I was taking, and we were in a breakout session, and somebody was sharing something, and all of a sudden the left side of my body was just getting like this heavy feeling, like in my shoulder. And I was getting this, like I said, this heaviness, just tightness. And I just said, are you having some difficulty or feeling burdened by a relationship with a female? And the woman started to cry. So, it was a safe place to do this because we're all in this spiritual class together. But it was, I felt what was happening in the, I was feeling connected to her in an empathic way, but I was sensing it in my body. I was getting that intuitive hit in my body. So close your eyes for a moment, or if you are someone who is a visual person, then by all means, keep it up, keep your eyes open. So is this a strong pathway for you? Do you have a natural connection and affinity to earth, to nature, to being outdoors, having your hands in the dirt, moving around? Are you drawn to practices that improve the physical well-being of another, right? Through either movement, physical therapy, massage, Reiki, so on and so on? Do you have deep empathy for all living beings and want to help have them live a physically healthy, wholesome life and be a presence of healing? And this includes animals and nature as well. So we move into the pathway of mental intuition. This is not, again, about the intellect, but how you receive the intuitive impression or resonance is through a thought, an idea that comes, that just happens to fill your mind. It's not about your analyzing, making a list, but you get a download of a higher awareness. And it comes like, and is very helpful in your day-to-day guidance, in your decision-making and life choices. And some experiences of mindful intuition is that unexplained knowingness. You just know that it's just right there, the flash of insight, you have foresight, or you may feel an immediate apprehension towards something, this idea of the thought comes, be wary. And it's more of a thought than sensing it in your body. And so is this a strong and open pathway for you? You can close your eyes or you could look at what's on the screen. Just take a deep breath. You often get inner knowings that sometimes surprise you, seem to come out of the blue. Do you have the ability to know without making lists or analyzing the details, researching stuff? You just have this knowing. Do you get a flash of insight or an epiphany that just pops right in? Are you someone who has a keen sense of character in an individual, and it's not coming from your reactivity of, oh, so-and-so looks like Uncle Joe, who I really didn't care for? And you're also, as we saw in the physical intuition, our healers, here, these are individuals that sometimes are those with sage wisdom, those who give guidance to others, right? They give wise counsel. And the difference here is to know whether you're coming from personality. You just don't go around, if you're coming from personality and that reflexive, not the intuitive state, or that space of openness, right, of divine, from your divine nature, you're just going to tell people what to do, or you just have to be right. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about you're in a situation and someone seeks you out and you just seem to be the one that people, admire for your sage wisdom. Is this a strong pathway for you? Is this something you are wanting to open to more fully? And then we move into creative intuition, and it flows through your feeling nature from the depths of your heart. It is the visionary pathway, the transformational pathway. And it is that urge, that desire to not just be, that urge to evolve, to see the picture or the greater awareness of something and not just the day-to-day, what the news says or what so-and-so says, but you get that glimpse of what you're being called forward to evolve into and to transform in. And this is not where you just get that, like I said, that direct knowing or that idea. Here in the creative flow, when we see the word transformational pathway, it is not only do I get the great idea, but it is applied action. It is the intuitive path of moving your feet to it as well. And so some examples of experiencing creative intuition is, like I said before, you seem to get that urge to evolve. Okay, I may not like this experience, but how can this transform me? How can, as I said in the meditation, okay, this person might be rubbing me the wrong way, but how can I use this for an evolution to transform my life and to be able to see this person from another place? It is when you get inspiration, creative ideas, whether it's through music or painting or building, or how you will express yourself in so many different ways. It is the download or the idea of innovation and revolutionary ideas make you excited. It's not just let's be comfortable. I don't mean when you get the download, you don't say like, oh my gosh, can I do that? Like you don't have that human moment, but is that urge that is always alive and that seems to call to you. And, you might say something like, oh, can I just have the easy button for today? Like, I know the urge is calling me, but for today, can I just be in the status quo? So know that you get the intuitive download, but again, you get to breathe, embrace your humanity and say, okay, let me take one step at a time. So again, here, is this a strong pathway for you? The creative intuition into the feeling, into the heart expression. And you can say yes if you have a strong desire to grow, to evolve, and transform. You have a creative spirit. You have an urge to create beauty. This is not the vanity beauty, but this is, to bring beauty into this world, and it can come in many creative expressions. Whether it's a song, whether it is, sharing profound words and prayer, so on and so on. You also not only desire to be transformed from within, but you also have a desire to help transform the world around you. And leaders with this creative, intuitive pathway, strong pathway, are those who would like to lead with ingenuity, creative thinking, self-expression, wanting to know what is wanting to be expressed right here, and not so much what does everybody else do, but what is this world, what is this moment asking us to be? So just notice. And then we move into our fourth pathway, which is called the transcendental intuition. That is the intuitive pathway of being, of superconscious, of spirit, to the connection that is beyond, right? Where you know that there is something beyond that. We know that we say we have our crown chakra, where when we reach in that consciousness of the superconsciousness, where we are accessing the universal truth and the direct download of divine ideas. It is the I am consciousness. And here are some examples. You have illuminated awareness, unshakable inner peace, even though there's lots of stuff happening around you. Mystical experience is when you have a palpable experience of the divine that goes beyond words, that goes beyond details. It is something that ignites you and can fill you with bliss and joy. And you can have a whole bunch of crap happening in your physical world, but like you're in this state. All right, is this a strong pathway for you? Do you have an illuminated consciousness, symbolic sight, cosmic spiritual calling, unshakable inner peace? And that unshakable inner peace can be in the midst of chaos, of things happening, but there's something that just grounds you from within. You sense the presence, and you can be the presence in the midst of turmoil. When I'm talking about symbolic sight, okay, so many of you may have heard me use the paradigm shift, right? Some of you are like, oh, are we still in this paradigm shift? oh, if I hear, if that one more time. But when you're coming from the mystical knowing, and you bridge the vision with the mystical knowing, you know that things are happening for a greater purpose, a greater evolution. You surrender to the mystery. You know that shifts in consciousness globally can take decades. And it's really dependent on the collective consciousness of each one of us and what we are willing to say yes to. So you see it from a symbolic way rather than, do I want to wear a mask or don't want to wear a mask? Am I a Democrat? It's like, okay, the paradigm is breaking. And then you begin to say, I'm comfortable with the death that is occurring right beneath me. It doesn't mean you don't have a human moment, but then you're always asking yourself, okay, how could I allow this total death to happen so that something new may be willing to be reborn? And you're okay with being in the mystery. Doesn't mean you don't have those moments like, are we there yet? Are we there yet? Like, I'm done with this. And then there is that mystical experience of, again, that direct experience of the divine, which goes beyond words. So take a look at these again, and you'll notice that I have included it's the mindful intuition path, the physical intuitive pathway, the creative intuitive pathway of divine sight, and transcendental intuition. As we go forward, she will call these, the mindful is the sage, the physical is the healer, creative is the visionary, and the transcendental is the mystic. So I'm just wondering, which ones are you naturally drawn to? You have a natural intuitive flow that is happening already. And this week you can ask yourself, how can you deepen it? How can you be more present to it? And then I ask you, which ones are not so open and flowing? Or which ones am I using from my personality self? And how may I be practicing being mindful, being present to what is without intellectualizing, allowing myself to sense the space between thoughts, to allow that intuition to flow, whether it's through my mind, my body, through my heart, through my sense, my feelings, or through the experience from beyond, the spiritual revelation that occurs. And so I invite you into that this week, and to know that we're going to take time on each one. I ask you to be open. Some of this may be familiar to you, but I always ask for beginner's mind, including what I ask of myself, to have a beginner's mind, because that's when we are open to seeing it in a more creative and more intuitive way. So I wish you a blessed week, and I just know and affirm that each and every moment you are open to the flow of the divine in new, creative, and glorious ways. Have a blessed week. Namaste.
Thank you, Angela. That was wonderful. And our affirmative prayer: I am open and receptive to divine insight that freely flows to me from the beginning. I'm sorry, we're not at the beginning. I'm going to start from the beginning again.
Awesome.
I am open and receptive to divine insight that freely flows to me from the intuitive pathways of my body, mind, heart, and spirit. And now our guardian angel will stop the recording.